part of the question, how the directive was developed.
And will this directive, as it was developed, in your opinion, help or hurt the FBI in its counterterrorism mission?
I had some initial concerns about NDAA in two areas. The first area was with regard to our continuing authorities, and the final passage of the NDAA resolved that concern. The second concern is what would happen at the time of an arrest where events are fast-moving, and would there be confusion with regard to who does what when. And the directive, in my mind, resolves those issues. And it makes it really clear that if we had a terrorism case that fell within the parameters of NDAA, we would continue to work that case in conjunction with the Department of Defense. So I was satisfied with the bill as well as the directive as assuring us that we would be able to do our job effectively, given both the directive and the statute. Changes in the statute, I should say.
Okay, and would you recommend any changes in the statute when it comes up again this year?
I'd have to look at it and see what was proposed. You asked about the development of the
policy procedures,
the policies. That was done in a number of working groups with Justice Department, Department of Defense, DHS, and the like. That's how it was developed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Mueller, welcome. Director, do you agree that no United States citizen arrested in the United States should be indefinitely detained without all the rights of due process? What's your interpretation of Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act?
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. The question is whether or not you agree that no United States citizen apprehended, seized, captured, arrested in the United States should be indefinitely detained without all the rights of due process provided by our Constitution.
I believe that should be the case.
So, do you have concern over the language that is in the National Defense Authorization Act called Section 1021, which does not clarify the status of U.S. citizens in that regard?
I haven't focused on that aspect of the Act as much as I focused on the other aspects of the Act. But I do believe it affirms the President's authority to make what decisions the President believes are necessary to thwart a terrorist attack.
But that might include seizing a U.S. citizen in their home in Chicago, Illinois, and then detaining them indefinitely without charges.
I'm not certain that's the case, but I have not read the OLC opinions and I have not followed the debate
Sure.
on it.
Well, we would look forward to the opportunity to work with you to make sure that it's clear that U.S. citizens have that protection, and we are in the process of working through that here in the Congress. Let me ask you another question. Last week, the FBI arrested 5 men in Cleveland, Ohio, who were involved in a terrorist plot to bomb a bridge. Some of these men were members of the Occupy Cleveland movement. Has the FBI seen an increase in this type of left-wing extremist terrorist activity, and is the Occupy movement a breeding ground for this type of extremism? And if those within the Occupy movement perceive that their demands are not being met, what is the likelihood that we will see them resorting to more of this type of violence?
As to the last aspect of your question, I can't speculate. I will tell you that because it's the individuals who were arrested last week, I'm limited to, and I direct you, if I could, to the complaint that was followed and the facts that are laid out in the complaint, which focus on their conduct, not necessarily the conduct of others.
And how about my first question, which was, have you seen an increase in this type of left-wing extremist terrorist activity?
Well, I would say I wouldn't necessarily go with a predicate left-wing terrorist attack. I would say persons who have violated the laws in this particular way, we have not seen necessarily an increase. It's episodic.
And how about if it's ideologically driven, without characterizing the particular ideology?
These individuals violated the law. That's why they were arrested.
Thank you. Time's expired, but with regard to my first question, I'd also call to your attention legislation that was just signed into law by Governor McDonnell of my state It was House Bill 1160, which basically, in addressing this concern about unlawful seizures of citizens in their homes, directs that no state agency in Virginia can cooperate with any federal agency for the enforcement of that provision in the NDAA. So if you could look at that further and respond to the committee with your thoughts about how we can correct this problem and protect our citizens here at the federal level, we would very much welcome it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, sir.